Alright, one Sparta 123. Today I'm going to do another review, firearm related of course. But this time instead of on the gun itself is going to be actually this bad boy right here. This is the PRP for Powder River Precision Ultimate Easy Fit Trigger Kit that I did on my full-size XD. For the purposes of this video, because I'm going to be pulling triggers here, I have already unloaded the guns. You can see there's nothing in there, and nothing in here as well, nothing in there, and also nothing in there. So both guns are empty, ammunition is away, and let's get to it. So there's several videos out there on the PRP trigger kits. Most of them are on XDMs. Some of them are on XDs, but all of them have one thing in common, which I'm going to go ahead and do this for you guys, is that they don't show in the same continuous shot the before and after. This is my subcompact. I carry this thing a lot more than I carry this one here. I almost rarely carry the full size. And this, as you can see, has a regular trigger on it. The only difference between this and that, other than the size, of course, is the amount of rounds that they have through them. This one's got about 400 rounds through it now. I got to run a competition with it, and oh my god, it's so much easier to hit than with this thing. But this one's got about 400 rounds through it. I have not shot with the trigger kit yet, but so this is going to be a before and after review as well, of after I shoot with the trigger kit. So right now is going to be initial impressions, and so yeah, back to what I was saying. The only difference between the two is that this one's got 5,000 rounds through it, and this one's got 400 rounds through it. So the trigger on this one's a lot smoother, or I'm sorry, was a lot smoother than this one was. And I'm going to go into what I did and as to why this one was smoother than this one was. So anyway, we'll get right into it. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is compare the two trigger pulls. I mean, if you guys are watching this video, you're probably debating on purchasing this. So we're going to go ahead and close the slide. And so this is the subcompact, as you can see. You're going to see the before trigger. So you got the little take up for the safety here. And you got a whole lot of take up all the way to the back here. And then you got a little bit more, and a little bit more, and break. You see that? So it broke right around here, as opposed to, you know, up here and stuff. So that went almost all the way back, and then it broke. Almost no over travel, of course. Nice one-handed manipulation. Actually, I'm gonna do that again. Yeah, it's a lot harder to do with one hand. So let me show you the reset. So we're all the way back. There goes the reset right there. So take up again, take up again, take up again, break. So reset again, right there, and then this is all the way out. So that's the subcompact, that's before full size, and this is after. So take out the safety here. I didn't move the trigger yet. A little bit of take up, a little bit more. And as you can see, there's literally no over travel. Now here's where the good part is that, listen to this, or look at this more specifically. A lot less trigger travel. Like, this is literally, you know, it's like, it's hard to just pull the trigger without actually setting it off here, but you know, that's from here to here is about all the take up, and then it breaks. So Another funny thing is that all the videos that I have seen are people from the South that talk like this, and they tell you about how they like their gun and how their trigger kit really is improved. Well, hopefully I don't have that big of a Southern accent. I do live in the South, but hopefully it's not like that. But anyway, so this trigger pull supposedly is around 3.5 or 3 pounds as advertised. It's definitely much less than this. If I were to guess, I would say probably closer to 4 pounds. I'm no expert though. And the reason I went with the Ultimate Easy Fit trigger kit, which comes with the aftermarket trigger, the aftermarket striker safety, aftermarket sear spring, and aftermarket trigger spring for lighter weight, as opposed to the Ultimate Match Grade kit, which comes with the previously mentioned parts plus lightened up titanium, I believe it is, sear from Powder River Precision. So the reason I did that is that, the only difference I can noticeably, see the difference between the two kits is, well, of course, price, but the second thing would just be the sear. And one thing that I found that none of the kits offered by either Springer Precision or, let me take that back. I'm not sure about Springer Precision. I don't think they address that either, though. But it's definitely not addressed by the Powder River Precision part. Is the actual trigger bar itself, which I'm going to show you specifically what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to pause the video and take apart these two guns here, and that way I can show you, what exactly I did. And yeah. Alright, and we're back. Alright, so I took apart these two guns here to show you what I did, and the differences between, a gun that has a lot of rounds through it and a gun that doesn't have so many rounds through it. So, when I bought the full size, I noticed that the trigger was noticeably more gritty than it was on my subcompact, and that was because the trigger bar. Focus, camera, focus. There you go. As you can see, mine is now polished, whereas before, I got way too much grease on this thing, as before it was painted. On the subcompact, because I got so many rounds through it, it just kind of did that by itself by shooting it so much. Bear with me, guys. So you can see that it's polished only in this small spot right here, as opposed to my full size is polished all the way through. And that made a noticeable difference. Look at all that grease. I need to take some of that off. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so that made a noticeable difference in the trigger pull, because before I polished the trigger bar there, the paint was starting to scratch off from, the gun cycling, of course, and rubbing up against the striker safety. I'm sorry, not the striker safety. What does it rub up against? This little channel right here is where it rubs up against on the slide. So the paint was starting to come off and making it noticeably gritty trigger pull. What I also did in this is I went ahead and polished up the sear surface. As you can see, the difference between that one and the subcompact. Subcompact I have not polished at all. That's just from shooting it so many times it's gotten like that. And the reason I got the flash on is because you can see where it starts gleaming on there. And so I polished up the trigger surface, and I also polished right in here where the sear, I'm sorry, I said trigger surface previously, let me correct myself. I polished the sear surface that interacts with the striker surface right here. And as you can see, it's really shiny there. And that helped further improve the trigger pull. So yeah, that was a noticeable difference. And again, neither kits actually address that unless you go out and buy their aftermarket striker. So of course you had to take apart the whole slide to do that. And yeah, that made it even better. So in the trigger kit, as I mentioned, you get the springs, the striker safety, and the aftermarket trigger. So this is the aftermarket spring here. You can't see the other one. It's under the locking block. And the hardest thing about this probably was figuring out the particular order that the striker safety, which is this here, how that actually interacts with this here. Once you figure that out and figure out how it interacts with the trigger bar, oh, you're golden. Other than that is actually fitting the trigger itself. And I did that with some files that I got from Harbor Freight from like maybe $10. I can't remember how much I bought them for. I got them when I built my AR. So that's really about it. Honestly, the trigger pull is so freaking good in this. Like, I'm debating on getting the same kit for this, just keeping the factory weights just to take up all that pre-travel. I'm still playing with that idea, being that it's generally a no-no to do a trigger job on your carry gun. So that's debatable, of course. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, other than that, there's a couple tests that you got to run when you are fitting this. I did it a little bit differently than how all of the instructional videos tell you how to do. I got everything working in the back, and I made sure everything moved around in the back like that before I actually did the trigger. So once I put the trigger in, I just dropped it in and I reassembled the whole gun. And of course, I knew I wasn't going to be able to fire it because the trigger couldn't really move at all. So what I did before I put the slide back on is I would file the back of the trigger here, which is for the over travel stop, until I noticed that the sear would go flush. Once I noticed the sear would go flush, which, taking a factory gun, you'll see the same thing happens here, and this one actually goes a little further, so I could actually afford to take a little bit more off of this one. But once you notice that, I mean, you should be pretty much almost there, and you're safe to go ahead and reassemble. And then from there, I just fitted it while it was actually reassembled until the gun, until the gun fired, dry fired, of course. At that point, there's a couple tests that you need to run when you actually reassemble the gun. You put the slide on top of the frame here. You're gonna push down, and you got to do this with a little bit of force here. You got to push down around here where the sear is, so that way you're creating less of a tolerance between the two, and make sure that the gun still fires. Another thing that I read that you can also do is stick the gun in the freezer, so that way it cools down and changes the tolerances again, and make sure the gun still fires. I did notice, and I'm glad that I ran these tests before actually loading up the gun again, that before I took off a little bit more to where the gun actually functioned through those tests, that the sear would be just on the tip of the striker, when the gun's cold like that. And what would happen is it would keep the grip safety depressed. So I noticed that, and I was like, well, if that's like that, then, what's really keeping this thing from going off? So, I started banging it around, I knocked it on my carpet floor in my room, I hit it with my hand. Sure enough, I got the gun to go off. So just be very careful if you do decide to tackle this yourself, that all of your safeties work. Your safety is how I had it before, the safety would work normally until you chilled it and you pressed on top of the slide to make, even less of a tolerance between each other. And at that point, the grip safety would stay in, the trigger would, of course, stay, right where in its place, and you would basically literally bump fire it by knocking it, and it releases the striker. So I noticed that, and I took a little bit more off after doing that. I've replicated the exact same situation, and it didn't unintentionally go off. So after doing that, I think they said one more test that you can do is just make sure that you have enough travel for the gun to go off with 2 business cards behind it. Powder River Precision. That's a mouthful, by the way. Was nice enough to send me a bunch of business cards because I asked them to, and I went ahead and stuck them behind there, and it works just fine. So again, this is before I've actually shot this, but so far it feels amazing. If you're gonna order the kit, go ahead and do yourself a favor. Order the striker retaining pin. It's like $12 for a pack of 3. I ordered that, and I replaced this one and this one, and I still got another spare. So just go ahead and do yourself a favor and order it. But other than that, I mean, honestly, like I said, the hardest part was actually filing down the trigger, and then figuring out how the striker safety interlocks with the sear and with the trigger bar. Other than that, I mean, everything else is pretty straightforward. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up. It's already 15 minutes long, so I'm probably boring you guys. But I'm gonna reassemble the guns one more time just to give you a final trigger press so you can get an idea. So I'll be back with you in just a moment. And we're back. Alright, so to wrap everything up, as I mentioned, I'm going to do one final trigger pull. I wish I had a tripod so that way I could just show you both of them at the exact same time. So we'll do the before, of course, first. So let's get this at the right angle here. So you take out the safety here, and you go all the way back so you see all that travel right there. And focus a little bit. There we go. I'll show you the reset. There's the reset right there. Show you the after. So I'll show you the reset. Do that one more time. There's the reset right there. It's almost all the way out, honestly, the reset. So it's almost like a really short double action trigger. Because the reset's really about there. And the gun really breaks right about there. So right around there it breaks. Full out, reset, and it breaks right around there. And then you have just a little bit over travel. So, wrapping things up, 17 minutes in, Sparta 123, Powder River Precision Ultimate Easy Fit Trigger, and signing out.